I'm what you need. You watching my channel. If you like what you see, you can like, share, subscribe. This stream has been brought to you by LIVE. LIVE, live now, we're alive now. You can order the LIVE products in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a series of drinks, punches, and also cleaning products. That's my sponsor. Okay, let's get into what we're going to talk about today real quick, which is, did Lamont Roach win the fight against Gervonta Tank Davis? Some people want to say it's a robbery. I don't think it was a robbery. Let's talk. So this was a fight that I was not interested in at all. I was not interested in seeing at all. I had zero interest in this fight. So I'm not going to lie to you. Okay. I want to see Gervonta Tank Davis face one of the world champions. Presently we have Shakur Stevenson, who is the WBC world champion. We have the WBO champion, who is Keyshawn Davis. Gervonta Davis is the WBA champion. And the IBF champion is Vasily Lomachenko, if I'm not mistaken. So really, we wanted Tank to face one of those top guys in the lightweight division. Instead, Tank chose to face Lamont Roach, who is in a division below him. He's a world champion in the division below him. He is, I believe, the I'm not sure if it's the WBC or if it's the WBA super featherweight world champion, which is 130 pounds. Tank is 135 pounds. So Lamont Roach was coming up in weight. So I was like, you're going to face a guy nobody really wants you to face. They want you to face the top guys at 135. You pull this guy up in weight like you did Hector Garcia. And not only do you pull him up in weight, but you're also making this a pay-per-view event. So for all those reasons, I was not interested in this fight. Now, I did not watch the fight live. I did not pay to watch the fight. I saw reruns of the fight. I saw highlights of the fight. And then I watched the whole entire fight because, you can go up on YouTube and you can see the whole entire fight on YouTube. So I went up on YouTube. I saw the whole entire fight. And lo and behold, Lamont Roach held his own against Tank Davis. And dare I say, some people are arguing that he beat Tank Davis. We're going to go into that. First things first. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. And let's get into it. First things first. Lamont Roach was very familiar with Tank's style. He faced Tank twice in the amateurs. Even though Tank beat him, they were both close fights. Secondarily, Lamont Roach was a guy who had sparred Tank and it came up with Tank. So he knew Tank quite well. That's very important. That was a very important point that I guess many of us overlook because we're not interested in this fight. Another very important point that I must mention, somebody was saying that Lamont Roach is not an elite fighter. I think it was Rasclout. I was watching his video. And no, I think Lamont Roach is an elite fighter. He was talking about how Jamel Herring had beaten Lamont Roach, so that's why he wasn't elite. But I think people need to go back and watch that fight because Lamont Roach almost knocked out Jamel Herring in the 11th round. The bell stopped. And then he proceeded to beat his ass all around the ring in round 12. I'll also advise people to go and also look at the fight and see that, yes, Jamel Herring was having success early in the fight, landing that straight left hand to the body, to the head. But as the fight progressed, Lamont Roach came into the fight, came into his own. They were doing a lot of exchanges. Some rounds became close. The rounds became much closer, became much more competitive. And later on in the fight, Lamont Roach really started to shine and really started to do his thing. And he almost knocked out Jamel Herring. I think a lot of people forgot that. So, yeah, he has a loss on his record, but that doesn't mean he's not elite. And to prove that he's an elite fighter, he became world champion. I believe he beat who's the fighter? He beat a guy, a really good fighter. I'm trying to remember who it was. He beat to become world champion, but he became world champion because he beat a really good fighter. So I think a lot of people were underestimating Lamont Roach and his abilities. And I did watch some footage of him. Now he's more of an inside fighter than he is an outside fighter. Okay. But having said that, um, and he's a really good inside fighter, by the way. And he has really good defense. Um, having said all of that, let's get into this fight. This fight was an interesting fight from the get go, from the first bell. Lamont Roach, the difference in this fight was Lamont Roach's jab. Lamont Roach knew how to use his jab. He knew when to throw his jab. Um, and that really helped him with a lot of things. Closing distance to get to Gervonta Davis, closer to Gervonta Davis. It also helped him with um, separating himself, leaving. So going into the pocket and coming out of the pocket, he used the jab. And I think that was the big difference between the two of them. Um, they both used feints. They both led with the right, led with their backhand, their power hands. They swept shots, check hooks, the whole 9 yards. It was beautiful to watch because it was boxing at its best. It was a boxing performance. Um, Interestingly enough, Tank could not really hurt Lamont Roach. I didn't see any point in time in the fight where Lamont Roach was hurt. However, interestingly enough, Lamont Roach hurt Tank a couple of times in the fight with some really crisp, sharp punches. And Tank was landing in the lead left, but I noticed something. His lead left was not hitting Jamal flush. Jamal would either ride the punch with his head or he would snap back just in time. So he'd get hit, but he would roll the shot with his shoulder, right? He'd catch it off the shoulder. So it was a lot of stuff, even the body shots that Tank was seemingly landing. He did land some body shots on Lamont, but Lamont's defense was pretty tight. And of course, Tank's defense is pretty tight too, and Tank uses distance control and all kinds of things. But he couldn't even use distance control in Lamont Roach. When he tried to stick out the hand, usually try to keep your opponent's jabbing hand at home. So stick out the hand. Lamont Roach would deter that by slapping down that hand and coming over it. So Lamont Roach was doing a lot of really good work. The very critical thing in judging this fight, I noticed, was a lot of rounds were close. But who was the aggressor in those rounds? It was Lamont Roach, who wasn't really taking no steps back. And he can box off the back foot, as we saw against Jamel Herring. He wasn't taking no steps back, and he was keeping his defense tight, and he was walking the Tank a lot. And he was throwing, leaping right hands and all kinds of things he was throwing. And Tank was throwing all kinds of things too. But Tank couldn't really, the thing why Lamont Roach could offset Tank in his timing and also counter him was because Lamont Roach understood Tank's timing. And he, as Lamont Roach said in the post-fight interview, he fighting in spurts. Tank fighting in spurts. So Lamont Roach was able to outwork Tank, especially in the later rounds. Lamont Roach took round 9. In round number 9, Lamont Roach caught Tank with a right hand, which Tank rolled up, righted a bit, and then came up with a jab, and Tank basically took a knee after that. And for whatever reason he took the knee, the referee started to count, and then he stopped. Because Tank was wiping his face with a towel or whatever. And it really don't matter. If you take a knee in boxing, that's an automatic knockdown. It's just what it is. If you voluntarily take a knee in boxing, it's ruled a knockdown. And for some reason, the referee did not rule that a knockdown. And that's a big error on the referee's part, and he needs to be reviewed for that. Because that was a knockdown. Okay? It proceeded after a punch. Might have been a delayed reaction. But I believe that Tank got buzzed by Lamont Roach. And there's a reason Tank wasn't storming into Lamont Roach, because Lamont Roach got power. Now, Tank came back hard afterwards. He was throwing a lot of shots. Lamont Roach was blocking some, getting caught with some. But then Lamont Roach opened up, and they both started trading in that round. It was a very exciting ninth round. Very exciting ninth round. But that ninth round should have been a 10-8 Roach, 10-8 round for Lamont Roach. Park that in the corner for a minute, right? We're going to come back to that. Round number 10 was not as active. It was a quieter round. But then round 11 was a big round for Lamont Roach. Big round. Undeniably, he took that round. And the final round, the 12th round, the championship round, he also took that round. Now, here's the thing. Regardless of how you feel about the fight, let's just go with the judges' scorecards. Two judges had it 114, 114. One judge had it, I think, 7-5 to Tank or something like that. I'm gonna be real with y'all. If those two judges had it 115, 113, I'm sorry, 114, 113 for Lamont Roach, he would have won that fight by unanimous decision because Lamont Roach should have gotten that knockdown. Just based off of that. You can go with whatever the judges judge because it was a close fight. You know, it's back and forth and stuff. But I think the deciding factor in that entire fight was that knockdown. That should have been ruled a knockdown. And for some reason, the referee did not rule it a knockdown. He didn't rule it anything. He didn't even say it was a slip, nothing. And that's the corruption in boxing. Now, so was it a robbery? It was a close fight. So I wouldn't call it a robbery. But I do believe because the referee did not call that knockdown, which should have been ruled a knockdown, okay? Because of that, Lamont Roach did not get his win. Instead, he got a draw. And I really think he should have gotten the win. He should have gotten the nod on that fight. Not only did he control the action, but he also controlled the center of the ring. He was the aggressor. He was the one going to Tank. Tank was fighting off the back foot. And if those are swing rounds, you got to favor the aggressor. If they're swing rounds and the rounds are close, you have to favor the aggressor. So to me, Lamont Roach did a number of things correctly. One, he was the aggressor. Two, he actually knocked down Tank. It should have been ruled a knockdown. And three, he came on strong in the championship rounds. He took 2 of the 3 championship rounds, right? He took round 10 and he took round 11. And you could question if he took round 12. You can get Tank round 12 if you want. I gave the 12th round to Tank. To Roach. But you can give the 12th round to Tank. It was a back and forth round. The point I'm making is just based on the judges judging, that fight should have been given to Roach. In my honest opinion. If you voluntarily take a knee, which is what Tank did, then automatically the action stops, yes. But also you need to be deducted a point for taking the knee. You can't just willy-nilly take a knee in any fight. The other thing I thought that was interesting in this fight was the fact that Lamont Roach could take Tank's power. He took it. He took Tank's power. And that's because Tank's power, as Lamont Roach said, depends on his sharpness, how quickly he throws the punch that he sets you up and that you don't necessarily see. So you're not expecting. But Lamont Roach, having dealt with Tank, that element of surprise wasn't there. As he said, Tank's a quick twitch, and he didn't want to say what Tank's secret is, why he knocks out people. But we know what it is. It's because of how he walks you into stuff. And you're not really seeing it. Rawley never saw the knockout that he walked into. Ryan Garcia was throwing a shot while he got hit with a shot, and that really hurt him. Ended up with a muscle spasm and cramped up, and that was that. So Tank uses the element of surprise to knock out guys, and he's very sharp. He's very quick. He has speed and power, but he couldn't use that speed and power on Roach because Roach knew what he throws, knows what his pet thing is. And even when Tank tried to overwhelm him with power and throw a lot of stuff, Roach was able to deflect it, roll it, ride it. And so it was like Tank wasn't really effective with anything that he was throwing against Roach. Even though, again, he did throw some heat and some power on Roach after he got knocked down. But Roach came back and he fought him. So I think that Lamont Roach won the fight. Now, having said that, there more than likely will be a rematch. This is what we're hoping for. And if there is a rematch, the question is, can Lamont Roach convincingly beat Tank? Another thing I noticed was Lamont Roach's way of proceeding to fight Tank was the same way that Devin Haney would have probably fought Tank, except Devin Haney would have been longer. So that jab is a big factor. I saw that Roach's jab was a big factor in dealing with Tank. And I think Haney's jab would have been a big problem for Tank. Just looking at their styles and the way how they kind of do their little semi-dimmies to get into the inside. And I could see Devin Haney would be a nightmare for Tank. I think Shakur Stevenson also would be a nightmare for Tank because these guys understand the feints that Tank throws, understands how he tries to get in position to counter you. So if a guy of Lamont Roach's ilk could do that, more than likely Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson would do the same. And I think those guys who are good defensive fighters, it would give Tank hell. He would just not be able to find him. And because of that, I think that's what Tank has not looked forward to fighting either Shakur or to fighting Devin Haney. And Lamont Roach has solid defense. Defensive fighters, generally speaking, would be very difficult for Tank, I think. And the caliber of opposition Tank has been fighting has not been the highest level of opposition that you could find, right? So I do think that Tank stardom is what saved him in that fight against Lamont Roach. So that's what I got for you guys. Now, what's the future for Lamont Roach? I think they're going to have a rematch. And if Lamont Roach could really convincingly, because I think he has Tank's number. I think he knows what Tank brings to the table and so on. I think Tank realizes that. And Tank is a fantastic fighter, but I don't think he's the best out there. And I think they set it up so that he could get fighters of a certain caliber he can knock out. I don't know why they thought that Lamont Roach could be a guy that he could knock out or try to, but Lamont Roach, maybe they're saying, well, the pros is different to the amateurs, but this guy really knew Tank and was able to do what he do. Lamont Roach proved to be a worthy opponent, which is good for him. And when they run it back, I wouldn't be surprised if Lamont Roach were to get the W. And he can grind and he can crack. He has sneaky power. He can crack. Lamont Roach can crack. And I've seen it at super featherweight where, he almost knocked out Jamel Herring. I think he dropped another opponent. He's been dropping guys. He's been beating up guys. So he does have power. And with that extra mass he put on, he probably had comparable power. Because Tank wasn't trying to mix it up with him like that. You know what I mean? So I thought it was a good fight. I thought that Roach should have won. I think a lot of people are probably of that opinion as well. And it's good that they're running it back at least, I think Lamont Roach stock just went up in the sky with that fight. I'm interested to see if he does go back down. If he goes back down to 130 or he stays at 135 and campaigns there. That would be interesting as well. So, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. That's what I got for you guys. I'm what you need. Tuning out now. You guys have a good one. Blessings and peace to everybody out there. Keep the Lord God first because, he directs your paths. And that's what I got for y'all, man. That's all I got for y'all. Peace out.